So I I had similar abandonment issues that I was recognizing in hers, in her, what you identified as being abandoned and alone. And recently, there's another worksheet that I'm hoping to get to today that I was just realizing as I was contemplating this one. This one was a couple of days ago, before yesterday, I received from Spirit, inner guidance, what I, for the first time in my life, called a freebie, because Spirit gave to me a really big hint. And, pardon me, it was that I had recognized that I was feeling needy about my boyfriend and wanting to, cling to him, that clingy feeling and needy, and wanting, I started to look deeper and noticing that I wanted him as a distraction, so it had to do with some procrastination. And but I heard myself say how needy I was about it. And so after he left, I started looking at it, and that night I slept on it. And I woke up with the next day a message that neediness comes from a time in my past with my father, who was getting remarried after a pretty long period of time of not remarrying after a divorce. So that means that I was 12 when the divorce started. It probably completed around age 15 when I chose to live with my father. And he took me on. I mean, he was really there for us, my brother and I. And he put me on his checking account, and he had me be, I was the eldest, so if anything happened to him, I was the one that was the signature person and all of that. So then all of a sudden, 20 years later, he's getting married and he's taking me off all of that, which is understandable, but I didn't really get it. I just felt bad. I felt demoted and set aside, and then the words, abandoned and undeserved.
Can I interrupt a minute?
I see that
okay.
now.
So,
okay.
Breaker.
Yep.
Notice
Yep.
that none of those things are feelings. All of those are thoughts.
Oh, okay.
Demoted, abandoned. They're thoughts. And what was the feeling that went with demoted? So there's a thought that I've been demoted, therefore I feel, am I sad? Am I afraid? Am I angry? Am I rageful? So they might be some of the feelings that would come from those thoughts. And when you realize that they're thoughts, each one of them is a separate wake-up sheet, and each one is going to be a different goal. Around the thought that I've been abandoned, then perhaps my goal is, in that circumstance, might look like, well, I really wanted my father to continue to honor me and include me. That might be what the goal would look like. Around being demoted, the goal might look like, I want him to see how important I am.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start realizing that what you just categorized, and you might want, I don't remember what each of them was, but if you go back and listen to the show again, then realize each thought that you just spontaneously expressed has a feeling that goes with it and a specific goal. And as you cancel the goal that relates to that, that's when you'll process that aspect of this whole issue that ends up as your mind perceiving it as abandonment, neediness, all of the things that you described.
Well, I did do some of that, and I got it down to, I want his love, I need to be loved by him. I needed to be needed by him. And so I've used that energy to create neediness. And there was all those thoughts, behind those thoughts were fear, right? Fear of being alone or abandoned or just not needed. So that energy is still running in me. And where did I get with this? Oh, yeah, the lady, Yolana, was having trouble understanding the punishment part of the worksheet. And so what I've noticed that I do to protect myself from my fear of being abandoned or alone is that I start abandoning my partner first before they can do it to me. And I have noticed that pattern in life before. So anyway, this is a big insight for me to keep doing worksheets on, and I recognize that I've energetically patterned with this energy. And but today I was thinking, my father is 93 now, and he has lived a life basically never been injured, never really been sick. So he's just kind of waiting to die now because 5 years ago he stopped being as active as he used to be because he had to be more careful, and his wife doesn't let him really do much. They don't go anywhere or anything, and he used to be really active. So I recognize the hostility that I have for his wife, by the way. I just caught that. But my concern is.
Let me just interrupt your speech pattern again for a moment, if I may.
All right.
And notice that your mind is pointing hostility at her, but you don't have hostility at her. You have hostility.
Oh. Yeah.
And you can use her as an object of attention and say, well, the hostility's toward her. Really, it's not. You could use any object of attention. In fact, I bet you've probably from time to time even looked in the mirror and had hostility toward that person you see looking back at you in the mirror. And so recognize that there's another whole complex that's tied into this issue that you can forgive and remove hostility from your mind, so that no matter who you looked at, no matter what happened in your world, there would be no need to point hostility at anyone because you don't have any left.
Yeah.
Good breath. But as long as there's hostility there, your mind will sooner or later find somebody. If it's not your worst enemy, it'll be your best friend that will say or do something that violates the goal that you hold from the past that activates that hostility. And each time it's activated is a space where if I'll go to that circumstance, that situation, and look at the very goal that I hold. What's the goal you hold for his wife? Gee, I want you to give my dad support for liberty. Or maybe it's more selfish. I want you to let dad come and spend more time with me. And when I cancel that goal, then I get to drop into the part of my mind that holds the hostility that's being projected, and I get to free my physiology of hostility. How cool is that?
And that's all there is to it, especially if I'm trying to be right about it. If I can remove that, I just got the hostility energy in my voice even. Boy, I really think I'm right about that. Ooh. But also Michael came to mind when I was a baby and like my father standing over my crib. And so even the hostility that was in me then, I guess, or I was in an environment of hostility that I took into myself, or, all of the above, past life, anything, it's just there to be removed. Every time, in every way, in every form that I recognize it, just ask to be shown, how to remove it, to remove it.
Yeah, and this is a good place to take a breath and review the power person dynamic. And remember that what installs, so to speak, the power person dynamic in the mind is that if there's someone in our lives that has more power over our lives than we do, i.e. a father with a child, in a crib, that would perhaps, the father has the power. If that father wasn't functioning as love and out of love, and if you as a child perceive that situation as survival, I'm depending on this person for my survival, I might die if, and this would tie in with that neediness, I might die if they leave. Then if those criteria were met, then the child in the crib, literally, it's like our energy field in that circumstance, in that place where a power person dynamic is flowing, it's like the energy field opens and we become a sponge. And if dad was prone to hostility, and you as a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4-year-old perceive survival here, maybe dad was raging like a crazy man. And if he was, all of that energy being released from him, the child becoming the sponge, and especially with the genetic tie to the person who's exuding the hostility, because it's kind of like that hostility receptor's already been pre-installed in the child who's genetically linked to the person who's functioning as a power person, then it's just like being a sponge and sucking in all that energy. And until that energy is forgiven, whatever circumstance resonates into activity, it's just going to spew back out of us. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's the reason. And I acknowledge you, because this whole conversation, you've just opened some huge, major key issues in anyone's life, and I appreciate your willingness to look, to listen, to be with it, and to start to move through it. That's monumental. I mean, that's the whole, just, in such a short conversation, the whole complex of energetic dynamics that you're looking at. And I appreciate your language being responsible for them, rather than having to talk about how, your boyfriend or your dad or his wife. It's really, you've just opened such a wonderfully huge can of worms to be worked. Awesome.
Well, here's another part of it, is that I've been noticing with this, my partner, my boyfriend relationship that keeps showing me stuff, that I feel like I'm living kind of at a 50% level, like I'm living for him or behind him, supporting him, which is the role I found myself in during the divorce, trying to support both parents. But more importantly, as I grew older and became a woman in relationships with men, I always played this secondary role and, totally losing myself, except I got to mimic the hostility. And so then I destroyed the relationships, but more covertly than outwardly. And anyway, I feel like this is all lifting now. The potential for it all to lift, well, for sure, a lot of it has already, and I know it will continue to do so. And I'm open more so now to just letting myself be shown the way instead of trying to hold it back as much as I have all these years. So, oh, gosh.
Awesome. Well, and as you breathe, with what you just said, with that in mind, recognizing that as underlying your perception of his current wife, that would probably open or give you the opportunity to open that whole need to control. The reason you would perceive her as controlling him, gee, she should just, let him do things, because of that control issue that you haven't resolved yet in your relationships with men. And there's an old, someone posted it was actually a sign in front of a church, one of these post boards in front of a church,
Mm-hmm.
and the sign said, "Ladies, if he doesn't wear diapers, you can't change him." and I thought that was hilarious, but it really does speak to the truth. And so when you look at how you've watched your, father's current wife, what it sounds like you perceive as her controlling him, then you might want to look at the subtleties of the way that you reach out to try to control. And as you let go of those, guess what you get to be? You get to be happier. You get to live more peacefully in your physiology. You get to get free of that hostility. And when you're free of it, everything changes.
That's true.
Breathing deeply with you.
Thank you. Oh, so, yes. And I just have to bring it up because you usually remind me, but I'll remind you about me the first time we met. How hosile I was.
You mean sitting in the park bench? Sitting in the park bench? And I became the object of your hostility. I remember that day.
I didn't even know what you were talking about. You kept saying, you're experiencing some hostility, I can see. And I'm going, wait, I want you to listen to what I'm saying. Don't tell me about my hostility, which I'm going to deny right here and now, therefore. Oh, man, I was so terrible. You were patient, Michael.
No, you weren't terrible. No, you weren't terrible. You were just in your stuff. That's all.
Yes.
I'd support you. I would support you. Who's told you that you're terrible? I'd support you doing some forgiveness work around judging yourself as terrible. And notice how automatically and how easily you just slid right into that there's something wrong with you. And I'd support you forgiving that judgment of yourself and recognizing that if your behavior is off base, it doesn't mean there's anything, quote unquote, wrong with you. It just means you're off base. So I correct my behavior. So what?
Yeah.
You don't have to step to that next level of judging yourself.
Thanks. Good catch. I appreciate that catch. Well, so my father is nearing death is what I wanted to bring up that I thought my next worksheet was. It's going to be one of them, but I can see I have these others too. But
Tell you what.
Yeah?
Tell you what. You just opened
another time.
One of the biggest issues on the planet, and we're down to less than a minute. So probably we're not going to handle that in a minute. However, we could start tomorrow's show out with that if you're willing to do that.
Okay. Well,
the show. Yeah. So let's go for it.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, I'm not focused yet. Let me see. Okay.
Well, take a breath or two and slow down and let go of the piano lesson. Get centered. And yesterday we were talking about the issues that surfaced as we listened to the earlier caller yesterday and how some of your issues paralleled that. And you were at a new level of readiness and willingness and time to go for it.
Well, I can... Yeah,
and then you mentioned your father, and he was aging and facing.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yes. Oh, that's right. And, yeah, I thought that he would be nearing his death just by his aging. He's not sick, but he's bored. And he always has said in life, as soon as I'm not having any fun, that's when I'm ready to go. So he's nearing that.
Well, I support you encouraging him to get back to having fun and living.
Well, I
know,
of course, and then my hostility came up.
Yeah, there you go. And part of doing that is going to be cleaning up your hostility toward your father's present wife, who, as I understood it, you've projected is the cause of him not moving forward in his having fun in his life. So as you clean that one up, you'll be a clearer space to support him really, truly stepping into that aliveness that is there for him at 92 or 192.
I've tried, and he's just resigned himself. I mean, people do that. They plan on dying. So
is that okay with you?
All right. No, it's not. And so, all right. So
okay.
what I want.
So there's your next
a
worksheet.
goal I have. I have a
Here's
goal.
Your first
yes,
worksheet.
to convey this to him. I'm ready.
Yep.
I don't have the worksheet.
Wait a minute. Wait. Slow down. Back up a little bit. Hold on. Hold your horses.
All right.
I'd offer your first worksheet, if you're going to convey anything to him, your first worksheet is going to be to forgive in you the need and desire that comes from some form of fear or perhaps hostility for him to live. When you get clear on that and you stop playing the game that you're accusing your father's present wife of doing, and that is trying to control him and determine what he should be doing, when you let go of that, you'll have a clearer mind to be able to open the space for him if it's appropriate for him. Can you let him, as you're demanding that his present wife does, can you really let him make choices over his life? And if he chooses to die, to let him do that, to just give him permission, say, Dad, if that's what you're ready for, I'm here to hold the space for you. I cherish you, and rock on.
Yes.
Because if you're addictively holding on to, out of your hostility at her, thinking it's her fault and he better live, for all the reasons that you've got what's unresolved in you, you need to start resolving those things. And to be the space of love for him, you have to be able to approach him with a mind connected to love, not a mind connected to fear of him dying, not a mind connected to unresolved resentments or rages or whatever's going on. You've got to clean that up. And when you approach him as the space of active love, I offer that you will have the best possible chance of appealing to the space of him that is that love and drawing him into life if that's what he chooses to do. And he might not. Can I honor his choices? Or am I going to control him?
Yeah. No.
The way you accuse that partner of yours of controlling you.
My partner of controlling me?
Good breath. Good breath. It's all tied together.
Whoa. Wow. There's a big healing here. Wow. I did notice a lot of body tension.
Yeah, yesterday you stepped into a major, a piece of work.
Hornet's nest.
Well, that's why I invited you to come back today if you wanted to take it to the next level.
Yeah. Okay, I do. And I thought that was what I was going to say yesterday, that I wanted to honor his choices. I didn't have those words quite, but I want to prepare myself. This is what I did write down for his passing, so that I'm not as caught up in my need for control. Yeah, that's what I wrote down. So yes. So then I was going to ask you today, should I do a worksheet on her or just me as to the hostility that comes up in me? Really, it's me and hostility is what I need to do my worksheet on, right?
Well,
even though I'm not focused
yet. And it sounds to me like there are probably 77 times 70 worksheets to be done around your demands of your father, your unresolved issues with your father, your demands of your father's present wife, and your unresolved issues with her, and perhaps those issues reach back, because of this whole family dynamic, into unresolved issues with mom. And then, of course, you started out yesterday with the conversation about the man that you're in relationship with, and it all ties together. You know, it's all linked. Remember they used to sing to us when we were kids, the knee bone's connected to the thigh bone, and the thigh bone, you know, it's all connected. All of these, and it's no different on the mental or emotional levels. It's all connected. When I undo or forgive an underlying piece that causes my mind to create a distorted perception, which is going to tend to lead me to the need to control, through forgiveness, I can collapse that distorted perception and free myself for a need to control and step into that place of trust where I know that the Creator's in charge of the game and I can trust the Creator. You know, it's interesting how many people talk about how much they love God, but when they're in hostility or fear, the first thing they do is turn to their rage and their manipulation and their control. They don't have any love for or relationship with God whatsoever. It's a total mental lie. It's just kidding oneself. You will know that you actually have relationship with the Creator, love, when you're in hostility or fear, and the first thing you do is turn to love for advice. That's when you'll know you've actually established a relationship with the Creator. The rest of it's all a fraud. What fun! So what parts of your mind, what circumstances do you approach out of hostility or fear where you need to forgive that hostility or fear?
Well, yeah, it does have to do with my mother too. I'm going to try not to tell too much story, but I'll use the. I don't need. Well, shall I use names? Okay, I don't know if I should use names. How do I tell this story? I don't tell this story much, but when I do, it's with hostility.
Yeah. So then you don't really need to tell the story. You just need to recognize, okay, here's a place where I have hostility in my life. Who's involved? You know, who's the object of attention? Is it me? Is it mom? Is it dad? Who is it? And in number 1C, I put their name. Identify in number 1B what I'm feeling. I remind myself that I am love and I can embrace this. I look at my thoughts and my feelings. What's the goal that drives this hostility-based perception? I cancel the goal to collapse that perception. And when that hostility-based perception collapses in on itself, I get access to the root of my hostility. And I get to let loose of it. That's the forgiveness process. And, you know, the fact that you brought the gentleman that you're dating into the conversation, there will probably be some worksheets in this whole scenario that will involve him. You know, perhaps out of your relationship with dad, establishing some of the dynamics of your relationship with men, there'll be some that will involve both of them. You know, you might do a worksheet around a particular dynamic with dad and find yourself doing the exact same worksheet with your former or your, and then you may find yourself turning in that circumstance to a worksheet that will be on you, you know, with your name in number 1C. And the goals that you hold for yourself in that situation. Each one, you know, it's like when we tie these energetic patterns together, it's like a tapestry. And, you know, if you've ever thought, oh, I've got this thread in my shirt, there's just this little loose thread, I'm gonna just pull it out so it'll be gone. And all of a sudden, that thread runs down the whole front of the shirt, and the whole front of the shirt starts to unravel. When you take any one of these threads, the hostility or fear that involves dad, the hostility or fear that involves mom, the hostility or fear that involves yourself, the hostility and fear that involves this man in your life, the hostility and fear that involves your father's current wife. Pull on any one of those threads, and you start to unravel the cover-ups in the mind. And oftentimes that means you end up with a Hydra worksheet, and you start moving in a number of different directions simultaneously as you clean those things out. How perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to forgive from your heart the wrongs in you, the energetic patterns in you that you put into your brain's inner image of everyone else. You go back to yesterday, and he says, you must forgive from your heart the wrongs of your brother. Forgiveness there wasn't, from your heart wasn't about a bleeding heart statement, forgive from your heart. It wasn't a statement of anything other than you have to look in your own, that word heart is the unconscious in your own unconscious, and remove that which you project into your brain's image of anyone or everyone, including yourself. If it's based in hostility or fear, it's a thread that when you start to pull it, will start the whole thing unraveling.
When you said remove that which I project, I got a real feel for what that is. That which I project. So I forgive it from my heart. So it is something. It's a mass. It's a structured reality that I try to project.
Precisely.
What? Yeah.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the goal that drives the projected perception, and you cancel that goal, the projected perception collapses in on itself. That's when you have access to the hidden part of the dynamic. That's where the underlying parts of the mind are healed, and you get freed from those projections. Then you go to Dad and you show up as love. Through the eyes of love, you get to see Dad as love, as who he is. And you get to talk to him, the real being that is your father. Not the one that plays or has played all the dynamics out that you have as a daughter and a father and all the stuff that's gone on. And then you can have a real conversation of support with him.
Yeah. I've seen him. I do see him. And I miss him. I'll tell him those things.
And so missing is just another structure in the mind that can be forgiven. If he leaves his body, the only thing that will cause you to project missing into your brain's image of him will be the fact that you have an unresolved reality in you about missing people. Now, we were watching, there's a television or a Netflix series we've been watching called Heartland, and it's about a ranch up in Western Canada. And it was interesting, last night's show, there was there's a girl who's about, I think she's 9 or 10, and she's talking to a 2-year-old that she's been caretaking, and she's going to leave for a short time, and she turns to the 2-year-old and says, are you going to miss me? I mean, she's already brainwashing the 2-year-old to hold this reality about we should be missing each other if our physical presence isn't there, as though we can't communicate other than through the physical. We've all been brainwashed with that. Time to let that one go.
Yeah. Okay. Get back on track here, Julie. Yeah, I'm ready to be done with carrying all this pain around, that I then further create my pain for myself with the belief that hostility helps.
Yeah, I hear you.
Whether I project it or not, if I just hold it inside me, then that's in my physiology.
Yeah, who told us hostility would ever get us what we wanted? You know, think of all the times that you've ever done something you regret, and at least 99.9% of it involved hostility. But people still keep going back to hostility to try to get what they want. Oh, I feel so bad. My little child, I was in such hostility. I, raged on them, or I whipped on them, or I told them something untrue about themselves. Oh, I feel so bad about that having done that. It was hostility. Oh, in that first relationship, that wonderful relationship that finally, and then when I went into a rage and it broke and fell apart, and that was it. Oh my God. Oh, I so regret having done that. And people have 1,000 stories about how they regret having used hostility, and yet they still turn to that damn stuff to try to get what they want. It's like such an addiction. Hostility is just an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to become a non-user. Even when your mind counsels you to get that hostility out, boy, and whack somebody with it. Stop. Be human instead.
Mm-hmm.
Be human. What is human? Hold a newborn. The active presence of love. Let that come forward and heal your hostility.
Mm-hmm.
Your sadness, your grief, your rage. Not an easy task if you're an earlier adopter and you're the first one in the bloodline who has realized that it's even possible to do. But it can be done.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. I'm wondering, what have I done with my hostility? I'm really in denial. I've buried it. I've covered it up with a calm way of being that is not enthusiastic or happy. Wow. So now to have it surface in a loving space of doing a worksheet is what I would prefer, rather than dramatizing it by projection onto others. Definitely would prefer this. So I'm letting go of a drug too that I've been using.
That's it.
The drug
That's
of hostility camouflaged by the drug of denial. I'm a drug addict. Yeah.
Welcome to the non-human race.
I use other people's lives and their drama and their hostility to pretend that I don't have any.
Distraction.
Yeah.
Distraction. If I could only change that.
Or forgive them, Right. Let them off the hook for my hostility.
Pardon if you choose to. Pardon, quote unquote, them if you choose to, and then do the work of forgiveness inside yourself to remove whatever it is you're projecting.
I feel like this is a real sobering moment here.
Cool. Nice. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Hold the space.
Yeah. So it's another one of those 15 worksheets spread out all over my table. Some of them will get finished and some of them won't. They're just so all intertwined.
Remember that if you try to tackle it all at once, it will become so huge a task you'll probably turn away from it and say, I'm going to forget this. If you do one piece at a time, that's all you need to do. You don't have to be concerned about, am I going to handle all of it? Just one piece at a time. Oh, I have hostility toward my father's present wife, so I'm going to forgive as to that hostility. And that may uncover an hostility that I haven't resolved toward my mom. So I'm going to forgive as to that hostility and let that one go. And that may uncover an hostility that goes back to a time when mom and dad were both ganging up on me. And so it might lead to forgiving an hostility that you hold or you projected into your brain's image of dad. And that might be the very hostility that, when it goes, opens a whole space of active love between you and your father.
Mm.
But it's like, you're pulling the threads. And you don't have to do all the threads at once. You just do them one at a time. It's kind of like the AA philosophy, one day at a time. Oh boy, I'm never going to drink again. No, they will tell the alcoholic, never say that. I'm not going to drink today. That's all. You have to face the mountain just today. I'm not going to rage. Go for it.
Yeah. Can I ask you, I know I could answer this, but I need to hear it from you, because I do it in such a way that my ego knows the answer and I justify something. So, when you said just start somewhere and maybe start with his wife and my hostility towards her, does this make sense somehow that I'm trying to find the starting point, and it looks like, or has in the past, that I have hostility towards her for being hostile towards me that she's never let go of. She's never let go of, so I guess I've never let go because she's never let go, and it's become a wedge, between us being able to have freedom to see my father,
So it hasn't become a wedge. It hasn't become a wedge. What's going on inside of you has become a wedge.
I let it be. Well, so I've adapted, but it's still out of balance because.
So take a look at.
I don't need her to forgive me, right? I don't need her to forgive me.
She could never forgive you if she wanted to.
Even though I wrote a letter a long time ago.
She could never forgive you if she wanted to, and you could never forgive her if you wanted to, because forgiveness has nothing to do with letting each other off the hook. But I would suggest that you do the wake-up sheet where your goal is for her to support you having contact with your father. I would support you doing some worksheets around your hostility toward her for seeming to be the block of connecting with your father. And as you clear that energy out, what you'll find, remember the step in the worksheet that says, when I choose love, it wakes up the love in everyone? When you connect to that place of loving you, then you'll be setting up a resonance, and the same love that is in you is in her. And it can't help but start to move and resonate. Now, it sounds like you've somehow joined in hostility with her, and she doesn't have to let go of her hostility. It's kind of like Jeannie likes to share it as a game of tug of war. Each of you are on, one end of the rope pulling back and forth. All you have to do is let go of your end of the rope, and her game has to change. Now, it may not become what you want it to become, but it will change. And as you keep doing your work, her game's got to change, and your communication's going to change. And when you get to the point where you presence active love, when you think of her or when you're with her, that's what's going to start to move and wake up in her. And you may find a dear friend. Because it's another aspect of yourself occupying what appears to be her form. That's the truth of it.
Yeah.
Go for it. Do it.
This is the preparation I can do. prepare a place for love to enter
Yeah.
in myself.
Powerful line in the Course in Miracles. Powerful line in the Course in Miracles. There is no place so holy as a place where an ancient hatred becomes a present love.
I know, that's what it seems like. An ancient, what was it? An ancient, like, grievance or place of...
An ancient hatred becomes a present love.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Becomes a present love. Am I willing to do this? That's my next question.
That's the question, yes. Big one. There can seem to be benefit to carrying around this grievance and being able to look at them and rustle your feathers and go, look at her. But remember, you're getting the original of that hostility. She's just getting a carbon copy. And she may not be home for delivery.
I feel like the light is so increasing that I can't hide anymore. And
so notice your language. Notice your language.
I said I can't hide from the light.
Notice your language, and there might be some forgiveness work to do around the desire to hide. Just watch. Your words are telling you some of your unconscious dynamics. So maybe it's not so much that she's been blocking you from connecting with your father. Maybe you've been wanting to hide from him.
Wow. Never thought of that.
Can you remember a time ever in your life?
Maybe that goes into the shame. What?
Yeah.
Goes into
You're
my shame pile. That would be even just hiding from God, the Father, being ashamed.
You got it.
Deserving of God's love.
Yeah.
But I don't want to take myself away too much from the actual work of what I have here, and you might need to remove. They're just sins. They're just mistakes.
Yeah, that's it. Energy's off the mark that can be corrected. It can be brought forward to the presence of love and dissolved.
And if I don't do this, I get to live in hell, and that's what hell is. I'm seeing that. I keep myself there.
Great an acronym for sin, S-I-N, self-inflicted nonsense.
Oh, yeah. This morning I got a little message from my little inside voice, my quiet and still voice, that that's part of this work, I guess. It's another pointer to doing this work, that it said you can't get the correction or right action as a subset. You can't find the subset of what's the right thing to do from being inside I use the word swamp, just to gain from inside the swamp that's wrong. The swamp is not going to figure out the right thing to do.
That's right. Hostility or fear will never direct your mind correctly. Never believe anything your mind, when it's in hostility or fear, wants to tell you is telling you a projected lie. Always, 100% of the time. And amazes me how many people have been around this work for years and their hostility comes up and they still believe what their mind's telling them. It's just, it's amazing. A mind in hostility or fear, by definition, is a liar.
It is. And it's time for me to see mine. just to see what, the reality that I hide from, and what am I trying to hide with it. I'm just going to have to stop hiding and look.
Yay.
Seems scary.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you made reference to God the Father. You go to the Course in Miracles, it says, what you're really afraid of is that God will show up with full approval as a presence of love for you.
I don't remember that, but thank you. Well, I think you pointed me in the right direction. Thank you, Michael.
Sweet. Well, gee, you've got 2 days of awesome listening to re-listen and layer by layer by layer. It's going to peel out based on this one. Awesome work.
Yeah. I have to record it on my phone or something so I can hear it over and over until I'm done. Well, if I really do the work, though, I have to say, I find that I never forget again. I never, if I really do this, I don't forget. I recognize when it's coming up each time.
Yeah, and notice your words are telling you something about forgetting, and there might be another forgiveness process.
I know,
and then,
it's a strong pull. I want to forget.
Yeah, yeah. So it's safe to remember.
What?
It's safe and healing to remember.
Oh, that's
it is safe and healing to remember everything.
So then I try to deny that I want to feel safe or healed. Thank you. So it is safe and healing to remember everything and anything.
Yes. Good mind shifter.
Yeah, I'm writing it down. Okay. Oh, see,
and you might add to that mind shifter. You might add to that mind shifter. It's safe and healing to remember, face, and forgive everything. To remember, face, and forgive everything.
Oh, that's a good one. To remember, face, and heal.
Forgive
everything.
Everything.
And forgive anything, everything, all of the above. Oh, everything. The mass healing, that one at the end of the worksheet. That's taking on a new meaning for me right now. Yeah, I sometimes just breeze through that one with the same list as all of the above, and now I'm going to go slower with that little box. Michael, thanks. I hope this was good for some other people, too. And I'm sure it will be as I continue. So everybody, hang on, because here it comes.
Well, it hit a couple of home runs for me, too, so I'm sure it'll be a valuable piece for everybody that's listening.
Yeah. Like, it's unavoidable right now. It's my commitment to healing and staying well during this physical symptom that's occurring in the world for all of us in our worldwide intensive. So I will do my part in God's plan for salvation.
Awesome. Yeah. We'll be holding the space, young lady. And you know where to find us if you need support.
Okay. Thanks, Michael. All
right, blessings.
I'm staying on until the show's over. Thank you. I'll be on mute.
All right, blessings.
Mm-hmm. I think that this one will probably yesterday and today will be pulled out
as one of the special MP3s.
Right on track. So, sweetie, do we have anybody out there with a hand up?
8 minutes. Bob says in the chat room, feelings are healings, and he loves all the feeling that's going on right now on the show. Yeah.
Yeah, safe to feel it all.
Absolutely.
Safe to go for it. Thanks for being there, holding the space, Bob. Completing the circuit from way down under. Awesome.
Over.
whichever perception you choose to generate. It is, and anybody who hasn't done that, it's kind of fun. Last time Bob communicated, he was sharing the map of the world where Australia is at what we think of as the top. And Google it and have a look at it. It's really kind of interesting to look at that map. It's got one at Heartland. It's kind of interesting to get a different perception. So we're down to about 7 minutes. If you're out there in listener land, anything resonate for you in this call? Anything that we can support you with? Any questions about how to apply or where to apply forgiveness? If you do, and you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, if you dial in at 563-999-3581, you'll be listening to the show. And Julie just sent me a text asking if you'd hit her mic again. She has another thought for us. And Jeannie, could you do that?
Yeah,
Julie?
she's on.
Go ahead.
Yeah? Oh, thank you.
Go for it.
I was trying to, thanks. That quote you said that when I was saying I was hiding from deserving of God's love, the Father's love, and you said a quote from the Course in Miracles. Do you know where that is, or can you just say it again for me, please?
No, I'm not sure just where it is in terms of chapter or verse, but just that, our real fear is that we're afraid of the presence of the Creator's love.
Oh.
That's where our real fear is.
Okay.
And that
I have a
Creator is really upset with us. And we give to the Creator, we project into our brain's image of the Creator a capacity, as many down through the ages have, capacities that Creator doesn't have. Love doesn't have the capacity for punishment, for rage, for vengeance. You look at the ancient scriptures and you hear men writing, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." What a crock. Love is going to take vengeance. Right. But men write their minds into the words. That's why, Yeshua, when they asked him what's most important in the law, he tells them that what they need is this filter in the frontal lobes of the brain called Rachma active. And he says that's the most important thing in understanding the law and the prophets. Because if you don't have that, then you'll project the content of your own mind into the words on that piece of paper. Everybody looks at a set of words on a piece of paper, and many people have totally and completely different meanings. Somebody says it means this, and somebody else says it means that. Somebody else says, no, it means this, it means this, it means that. No, the only way to understand it properly, first and foremost, is to have Rachma. That's why Yeshua says, "For upon this hangs the law and all its prophets." And guess what? There's not even a concept. There are no words to describe what the word Rachma in Aramaic means. We've worked to establish, but it takes a whole paragraph to start to understand what that word even means. So if nobody has a clue what that word even means, and it's what the law and the prophets hang on, who understands the law and the prophets? Good luck. All people are doing is projecting their own garbage, their own unresolved hostility or fear, right into the mouth of the Creator, into the mouth of Yeshua, into the mouth of the disciples. You know, we hear people saying things like, you know, here's one of my favorite examples, and I'm sure you've heard people say it. I've heard it many times. Well, even Moses said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. See, I've got permission to take vengeance. And that's the brain cells. People look at those words on the page 4 and they think, I have permission to take vengeance. Well, if you go to Rachma, what you find is Moses was dealing with a vile and vicious people that would do some of the most horrendous things to others over the smallest infractions. And so, understood through Rachma, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth means, okay, if you've got to take vengeance and they knocked out your tooth, the most you can do is go over and knock out their tooth. You can't go kill their whole family. If they knocked out your eye, all right, if you got to have your vengeance, here's the limit of your permission. Go take out their eye. But you can't go slaughter a whole village, including the animals and the women and the children and the person who offended you. He was putting a limit on that. But still people today, regularly. In fact, I've never heard anybody who understood that that was a limitation on punishment. Virtually everybody's take is, yeah, well, see, Moses gave permission. No, he didn't. Moses put a limit on vicious, vile, non-human behavior. You can't understand that if you don't have love active in your mind, running your mind when you read the Law and the Prophets. So if you look at the Law and the Prophets through hostility and fear, throw the book away. Don't even look at it. Because you'll just create more insanity, more viciousness, more vileness, more offense, more hostility and fear. Get back to Rachma, get back to that connected place of love, pick it up, and all of a sudden, there's a whole new book there. I remember a few years back, we had a preacher. He'd been a preacher for 50 years. Fundamental hellfire and brimstone. And he had a breakdown, and for a year, he couldn't even pick up his Bible. And after a year, and basically what my interpretation is he'd gone into a healing crisis. And after that year, he picked it up, and all he could see in that book was, well, this is about how to function. This is about love. This is about love. And he contacted me, and he wanted permission to use a page from the Kabbalist manuscript as the cover for his book, explaining that the scriptures were about how to function as love. The eyes to see and the ears to hear are really important.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, young lady, we're down to the last few seconds. I'm just going to invite everybody to have the best year yet of your